Lake Kawaguchiko is the best place in Japan to see Mount Fuji. And in this video, I'm going to show you the best spots around the lake to get the best views of this iconic mountain. Of the 5 lakes that sit at the base of Fuji, Kawaguchiko is the closest to Tokyo, the most accessible, and because it sits north of Fuji, from the north shore you get this iconic shot of the mountain rising behind the lake reflected in the water on a still morning. The view, incredible. Before we get into the spots, there's a few things that you need to know. You can technically do this on public transport, but there are a lot of spots around the lake that are worthwhile visiting with a car. So if you're comfortable driving abroad, it is worth hiring one. I found this incredibly confusing to plan online, but the best way of doing this is by taking the Shinkansen bullet train from Tokyo to Mishima, which is a spot on the Tokyo to Kyoto route. You can then hire a car outside of Mishima Station and drive to Lake Kawaguchiko. This means you can access all of the spots on this list. If you're staying overnight, you might be wondering whether to stay on the North Shore versus the South Shore. The North Shore is where the hotels, ryokans, and most of the famous viewpoints are. You also get Fuji reflected in the water. Pretty nice view for the walk. The South Shore puts you closer to the mountain, but you lose the lake between you and it. And then timings. Fuji is notoriously cloudy, but it is clearest at sunrise.
We could see nothing, and then out of nowhere, it just popped up out of the clouds.
The clouds build through the day, and by midday, there's a good chance that it's gone completely. So the serious photographers are out here at 5 a.m. So if you can do an early start, I would definitely recommend doing it or staying overnight. Different seasons also give different views. So in Sakura season, cherry blossom season, there will also be loads of spots where you get to see cherry blossoms and Fuji, which, I mean, how can you get more Japanese than that? So 7 spots to see Mount Fuji. We're counting down to the best, starting with number 7, the Lawson convenience store. So there is a Lawson that's a short walk south of Kawaguchiko Station that people come to Japan specifically to photograph. And that's because Mount Fuji frames perfectly in the background. It rises above the store in a shot that is just absurd and stunning at the same time. It's one of the most shared travel photos of Japan in the last few years, but the crowds have really followed. You don't really need a car, you can walk from the station, but I would definitely go early because by 9 a.m. there is already a queue to take a photo on the pavement. While you're here, pop into the Lawson and grab breakfast because you're in Japan. And the convenience store food alone is worth the trip.
Fuji! I'm so glad we got to see it. It is very majestic.
But there's nothing better than seeing Fuji in the lake. And that's why spot number 6 is on the North Shore. Now, for us, this was just outside our ryokan and actually from the view of our ryokan, so the hotel that we were staying in. But on a still morning, the lake turns into a mirror, where Fuji reflects perfectly in the water and essentially doubles in size. There's a dedicated viewpoint at Ubuyagasaki, which is a small peninsula on the south shore, which is accessible by bus and quieter than almost everywhere on this list. But pretty much from anywhere on the North Shore, you'll get really cool views of Fuji. One of my favorite views of the whole trip was this one, just looking outside of my window and seeing this deity. I can't believe we're here and that this is our window of Fuji behind. Number 5 is Honcho Dori in Fujiyoshida. 10 minutes drive east of the lake to Fujiyoshida town and you'll find Honcho Dori, a long straight high street with Mount Fuji sitting perfectly at the end of it. This has become a viral spot on social media, and there's something really cool about Fuji being framed by buildings either side that makes the mountain look enormous. If you want to feel the spiritual weight of the mountain, you need to head to the next spot. This is Tenku no Torii, number 4. On the north shore, up a forested hill, this is a distant worship site dedicated to Mount Fuji. You park in this forest, and at the viewpoint there are 2 red torii gates with Fuji sitting behind them. You need to pay 200 yen for entry, and you definitely need a car for this one. And the view standing here and soaking it all in is pretty spectacular, but when you're actually there in person, it does feel a little bit like a tourist trap, like someone's owned this land and then it's just charging people to come inside, and it kind of feels like the torii gates are just there for photographs. But it is still a really cool place to visit, and I would do it again. Okay, I know this isn't Mount Fuji, but hear me out. You need to try the Hoto noodles. Yamanashi Prefecture, so the region that you're in right now, is famous for the Hoto, the thick, flat noodle in a miso broth, slow-cooked pumpkin. It is soul food and exactly what your body needs. They're delicious. You can go anywhere in the region to try these noodles. We tried them at an authentic spot called Kaniyuka, which I would definitely recommend. Right, now back to the mountain, a spot that's on every Japanese travel board you've ever seen. It's Oishi Park at number 3. Oishi Park gives you the most open, unobstructed view of Fuji anywhere on this list. You've got the wide lake in the foreground and then the mountain behind. And depending on the season, this park has loads of different multicolored flowers everywhere. Rows of lavender, nemophilia, sunflowers across the park in front of you.
You know when you see something in real life and you just can't stop looking at it? That is like this moment here.
The red line bus does stop here, so you don't need a car if you don't have one, but it gets incredibly busy. There's also a coffee shop nearby with a window view of the mountain. And we had a Sakura matcha with Fuji in the background, which might just be the most Japanese thing I've ever done in my life. And so far we've seen everything at lake level, but this next spot is going to flip that whole thing. This is Kachi Ropeway at number 2. This ropeway is iconic because it takes you up Mount Tenio, so you're above the lake, looking down with Fuji rising behind it. The whole geography of Kawaguchiko makes sense from up here, the way it doesn't when you're on ground level. It's on the south of the lake, walkable from the station area, but queues build up mid-morning, so go early or go at sunset. And that brings up number 1, the most iconic space in the whole lake. And you probably know this one already, but it is Chureito Pagoda. Because every photograph you see in Japan shows this 5-story red and white pagoda with Mount Fuji centered behind it. And that is here. It sits atop a hill about 10 minutes by car from the lake, and you have to earn this view with 400 steps. We went twice at sunrise when we didn't get to see Fuji because it was completely cloudy, but it was relatively quiet. And then a little bit later in the day when we did see Fuji, but there was a ton of people there. But when you do see this spot, you understand why people come here for this.
I don't think we're going to be this lucky.
In Sakura season also, there are some really cool pictures and videos I've seen people get of the Sakura and Fuji and the pagoda, and it is just so iconic Japan. There are your 7 spots to see the one mountain. It sounds strange that we're traveling around, but when you see it in person, you realize that you just can't stop looking at it, and everything in an artistic way frames it or changes it in a way that makes it look different. Go early, stay patient, trust the process, and subscribe to the channel while you're here. It would be so appreciated. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.